It stands alone among the sagebrush and the sand, like a fortress against the elements. Its windowless concrete walls reach upward into the desert sky. It was the first, one of 3 built during the war, and one of 9 eventually constructed along a 50-kilometer stretch of the Columbia River known as Hanford. It was referred to as the Pile by its workers and was given an innocuous title of 105B, or simply B. But on September 26, 1944, a new science was proven, the world changed, and the atomic era began. It was August 1939, and tensions throughout the world provoked renowned scientist and physicist Albert Einstein to draft a letter to President Roosevelt, informing him of the work being done by Enrico Fermi and Leo Szilard on converting energy from the element uranium. He was convinced that the Germans were working on this same development, and if they discovered how to harness this power first, then the stability of the world was at stake. This new phenomenon could lead to the construction of bombs, he wrote, and it is conceivable, though much less certain, that extremely powerful bombs of a new type may be constructed. From this short letter rose the largest secret war construction project ever. Given the code name Manhattan Project, it would span multiple locations throughout the U.S., cost over $20 billion, employ hundreds of thousands of construction workers, all sworn to secrecy, displace families and communities, and create an environmental cleanup legacy that is still prevalent today. All with only one purpose in mind: to create an atomic bomb. General Leslie R. Groves from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers was assigned to lead the Manhattan Project. At first he declined, wanting to serve his country overseas in the oncoming war. But when told his efforts would help end the war, and perhaps all wars, he reluctantly agreed. Only weeks earlier, on December 2, 1942, scientists led by Fermi and Szilard at the metallurgical labs of the University of Chicago had sustained the first controllable nuclear reaction. It was this reaction that would transform the metal uranium into a new radioactive substance called plutonium. E.I. DuPont Company was chosen as the primary construction company. They had experience in explosives and new technologies, and General Groves was impressed with their management style. When Groves stood before DuPont's board of directors to present what they would be helping the government build, he had the information laid out in front of them with the pages turned down. He informed them that they would be responsible for the most vital and secretive war effort our country has ever known. All board members unanimously agreed, without once turning over the papers to see what they had agreed to. In the end, they would build and operate the necessary structures for all costs, plus $1. "33-year-old Army Corps of Engineers Lieutenant Colonel Franklin T. Matthias, who had previously assisted General Groves in the construction of the Pentagon, was chosen to find a site for the reactors and separation plants that would produce plutonium. A large supply of clean water, an abundance of electricity, a large remote tract of land, and favorable climate were the criteria needed. On December 16, 1942, Matthias found the location he was looking for. To Matthias, it was a barren landscape with limitless possibilities. But to the residents of Eastern Washington, who had just made it through the Great Depression and were looking forward to a bountiful spring, it was home. On New Year's Eve, Matthias and his team from DuPont met with General Groves to report their findings. By March 1943, 1,500 landowners found their lives turned upside down as letters of condemnation ordered them to evacuate their homes, no questions asked, and make way for a top-secret government project essential to the war effort. Residents of White Bluffs, Hanford, the town of Richland, and even a tribe of Wanapum Indians were evicted in the name of the Manhattan Project. Groves, duly impressed with his young lieutenant colonel, asked Mathias to oversee construction of the Hanford Engineer Works, also called Site W. It was determined that a temporary camp was all that was needed. The only permanent structures were to be the processing and production plants. Living quarters to house the permanent workers would be built in nearby Richland. Construction barracks were built for the men and women who streamed into Hanford with promises of high-paying wages. They were segregated by gender and race, with the women's camp under 24-hour guard. Smitten couples were reduced to holding hands between the fences. Those lucky enough to bring their home in tow or to rent one of the few government trailers available found cozy, or to most, cramped accommodations at the Hanford Trailer Park.
It was an upside-down world here during the construction of Hanford, because the physicists and the key engineers were in general very young people. Physics was a brand new science. There was no such thing as a person who'd been practicing nuclear physics or the science of this engineering for 30 years. Just didn't exist. So the experts were very young, often in their 20s. And most of the construction workers were a lot older, because the draft was taking men up to the age of 38. So you had a little bit of an upside-down world where the very young were supervising the much more experienced people.
Jobs were easy to find. Or you'd stop, light a cigarette on a street corner, and get 2 job offers.
You just had to be willing to learn and work safely, and that was all it needed. They didn't have reactor operators on the circuit anywhere, so they trained you on the job.
It was a different world in the 1940s. First of all, there was abundant trust of the government, and there was a different ethic in terms of if you're assigned to do a job, you do the job, and you really don't ask any questions. And that even held true in normal industry to some extent, although it was exaggerated here. We had a situation where people were told, you're doing important war work, it's out west, and that's all we're going to tell you.